Even when y'all don't have nothing to do with it, somebody do it.
Hold this in front of you. Right in the front. These blue books, hold them up like in front of you, represent us, all people. This is also a person. Now, as you notice, these are all the same, but this one stands out. It's also a smaller version of this. You see, it's not the size, is what I'm getting to. Which would you choose to be? One of these that are just alike? Or would you rather stand out among these, which are just the same? Again, don't look at the size. Don't look at what they are. These represent people. You don't have to be a certain height, age, or size for God to use you. So I'm not asking you to answer. I want you to think about this as I go through this sermon that the Holy Spirit gave me. Do you want to be like everybody else, or do you want to stand out and be different? Amen? Amen. Thank you very much.
Even just a day of you gotta play with the book.
This afternoon's sermon title is Dare to be Different. And I'm just going to get right into what the Holy Spirit has for us. He has a challenge for all of us. Everybody in here, no matter what your age. He dares us to be different. Different how? Different from the world. Different from our unsaved friends. Different from those who say they are saved while they are in church. But when they get away from church, they're a different person. Different from the way we used to be. The meaning for different found on the free online dictionary is unlike in form, quality, amount, or nature, dissimilar, distinct or separate, differing from all others, unusual. Those who dare to be different, the Bible tells us in 1 Peter 2:9 that we are a peculiar people. Other words for peculiar are unusual, strange, odd, bizarre, weird. So in other words, those who choose to be different, we are a weird bunch of people. We are weird because we choose to stand out among the ordinary. Because Moses agreed to be different and stand out among the crowd, the Israelites were brought out of bondage, and they were not disowned or destroyed by a plague for not believing God. In the first part of Numbers 14, the Bible tells us that the people that Moses was bringing out of Egypt and was trying to lead them to the land that the Lord was trying to give them were weeping aloud and crying all night, complaining against Moses and Aaron. Because they believed that they were going to get killed going into this land that God was bringing them into, they wished that they had stayed in Egypt and died there, or died there in the wilderness. Don't just lie down and die and give the enemy what he wants. Fight to get and keep what God has for you. Joshua and Caleb stepped in and tore their clothing and tried to get the people to understand how great and rich the land was, how God would allow them to take the land from the present inhabitants safely, how they shouldn't fight against God on this because he is and he was and is more than able to allow them to conquer those that stand in the way of his plans, of God's plans, and how he was with them, and they should not be afraid. The people wanted to stone Joshua and Caleb for this. And here is where God comes in and says to Moses, how long will these people reject me? Will they never believe me even after everything I've done for them? My question to you is, how long will we reject God? things get tough and hairy, and we tend to forget how good and how great God is, and how he has brought us out of so many tough situations. Now, here is Moses' chance to be great. For the Lord told him in verse 12 that he will disown and destroy these people and make Moses into into a nation far greater and mightier than they are. But Moses didn't go there, y'all. Instead, he pleaded for God's people. He dared to be different and not try to jump on the train to success and power. Now, because Caleb did not choose to blend in with the crowd with the blue books, and he chose to be different, God identified him by calling out his name, my servant Caleb. And he stated that he was different and allowed him and his descendants to dwell in the land in which he and Joshua explored. God allowed Joshua to dwell in the land also, but he called Caleb out personally, saying that he remained loyal to him. If you stay loyal to God, there is absolutely nothing that you need to be concerned or worried about. Nothing. As you can tell by now, this is not the first time that these people have not trusted and obeyed God. They failed God several times from Exodus 14 to Numbers 14. They didn't trust in him at the crossing of the Red Sea, and he had them cross on dry land, but he killed Pharaoh and his army. They complained about the bitter water at Myrah, and the Lord had Moses put a piece of wood in the water and made the water sweet. They complained in the Sin Desert about not having meat to eat, and the Lord provided them with meat, which was quail, and bread, which was manna from heaven. Moses told them not to keep any of the manna until morning, but did they listen? Of course not. They didn't listen, and it was full of maggots and began to smell. They went out on the Sabbath day to collect more manna after they was told that there would not be any and not to go out. They did more complaining about the lack of water. They engaged in worship with a golden calf, more complaining at Taberah, again complaining about the lack of delicious food, and again failing to trust God to go into the promised land. They had God right there with them. And I guess like us, they took God for granted. They really didn't know how wonderful they had it, having God right there with them. We, just like them, do things sometimes because we know we have a patient God, a loving God, a forgiving God. We know that if we just speak that magic formula, Lord, forgive me for I have sinned, then everything is going to be just honky-dory. Wrong. There are still consequences for what we do. We will have to reap what we sow. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whatever you put out there, whatever you plant, that is what you will get back in return. It would really be a surprise if you planted corn seeds and you got potatoes. If you gossip, which is talk about your friends, you will lose their friendship. If you plant to please your own needs, you'll reap a crop of sadness and loneliness and sin. If you plant to please God, you'll reap a crop of joy and peace and everlasting life. Yes, God does forgive us. And yes, we still have to answer for our actions. This is to help us to be better and stronger and to understand who God is. Okay, why should we be different? Who cares if we're different? It's just too much work to be different. And how can I be different? Okay, one, why should I be different? Let me ask